Let's bring in Georgia Congressman now, Doug Collins, Vice Chair of the Republican Conference and the member of the House Judiciary Committee, right on time with this topic. Great to see you today. I want to talk a little bit about Rosenstein, just in terms of it was a sarcasm moment, it was a joke. Why would that matter if you're talking about wearing a wire to record the president and invoking the 25th Amendment to get him out of the White House? Does sarcasm, does joking matter?
For him, it should not. He is in a position in which every word is scrutinized, and especially in an environment like we've had, in which we have found the problems inside the DOJ to be partisan and very much against what we feel is the rule of the American people. For him to even joke, if he did so, that was a wrong joke. And I think this is why this needs to be considered and moved forward, because he shouldn't be doing things like that. That just undermines confidence in the American people if it was to get out, joke or no joke.
All right, and so just in terms of getting to the truth, to the facts here, I would imagine that there would be some questions as he meets before the committee about the context of the conversation. Like, why would that, a sarcasm or a joke, even be funny? Like, what was the context? I think that's important.
The context is always important, but also I have to go back to this, what I said a few minutes ago. The context is important in the sense of why would you say it. It may be important that if it was a big joke, but when you have something as important as saying, I'm going to wear a wire with the President of the United States, I'm going to look to say that I will help invoke the 25th Amendment. You're actually looking at tearing down the very fabric and the very leader of our free world. That is not something, even in context, that should be allowed. The President, that is something that should be off limits. You may want to put it in context. You may want to say I was joking, but that was is really a distinct sign of poor judgment. And when you take that along with everything else, with Strzok, with Orr, with everything else that we've seen going on with McCabe, this makes this even more identifiable a problem. And that is why I'm glad the chairman are working forward to this. I believe this is the first step, not the last step, and we'll continue to see what happens as we go forward.
So, you know, we know that he was talking to then Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. You just mentioned his name. And when I say context, I'm curious to know how much more information was this? Was this a plan? Was this, I would imagine you'll ask those questions. The other thing is that I want to understand, Rosenstein is a staff member, if you will, of the president. So he can fire him, he can replace him. If a CEO thought that there were going to be a corporate coup to get him out of the position, I would imagine that person would fire anyone who would joke like this or say this at all.
Well, when you have the president actually sit down with Rosenstein and actually talk about this, they were on a plane together. The president, this is someone that you have rightfully said, the president can fire at any moment that he wants to. He works for the president. I think we also have to respect the president here. The president has done an outstanding job leading. He is concerned about the American people, about the economy, and moving this forward. He stated all along that this Russian issue and the investigations that there was nothing to them. He has always stated that, and he'll continue to state that. And I think we as in Congress, we need to do our oversight responsibility, make sure that we're looking at the issues that we have and in context and out of context, bringing all these people before the committee, because the DOJ was virtually at the top very political and very corrupt. This is why this needs to continue, but also we need to respect the president has made the decision to keep him at this point, and I think that's a balance on what we're doing from our oversight responsibility and also supporting the president as he has kept him on right now.
Congressman, you said a mouthful there, and you mentioned the words political and corrupt at the top of the DOJ. I want to ask you about that and what you intend to ask Rod Rosenstein about it.
Well, we have continued and begun this process already. Last time I think we have talked before, and I made it clear, Peter Strzok especially should have never been a part of the investigations while he was out of clearance or out of scope on his background investigations. He could have cleared that up easily. He didn't. He went ahead and was part of it, and the internal dynamics of the DOJ at the time allowed this to happen. We have seen conversations, we've seen texts in which jokes were being made about our political system. When you have that kind of a question mark being laid at the top levels of DOJ and in the FBI, there is something about the American people that look at that as wrong. They want justice that is blind. They want justice that actually puts their interest in make sure that if they had to go before, that there is not this internal, I'm going to make sure that what happens because I want it to inside DOJ and not what the American people wanted. That's why these things are important, and that's why we have seen so much turnover and why so many have been fired or let go, and we see this investigation continue.
Interesting. You're laying out the stakes, and now you will get an opportunity to talk with Rod Rosenstein. We weren't sure even a week ago if that were going to happen, and now it is. From the great state of Georgia, Congressman Collins, the Vice Chair of the Republican Conference, thank you.
Harris, always good to talk to you.
Well, 14 days tomorrow.